Hello, my name is Andrew and I'm the Chief Knitter here at the Albanach Knitter. It's great to welcome you to this next extra stitch video. I hope you're really doing well. I hope that you're enjoying your knitting or your crochet or whatever it is you're doing at the moment. And whatever season of weather you're in or whatever season of life that you're in, I hope it's all going as well as it can possibly be. It's good to welcome you along today. It's been a little while since I've been on. I'll tell you, life just gets very busy and that's just how it is at the moment. But never mind, a little bit more about that later. But it's great to welcome you back. I've got a few things to share during this episode. Firstly, an update on my current knitting project, which will come very soon. Then many of you have been asking questions, so this is going to be a little bit of a Q&A session. So at some point I'll have to put the knitting down so that I can start answering some of your questions. And then later on, we now have a winner for the gift away, which is a copy of 52 weeks of accessories published by Lane. And to win that, all you had to do was put a question on my last video. And many of you did, so thank you very much for that. It was great to hear from all of you. And I enjoyed replying to those messages as much as I could. And we now have a winner. So I'll be announcing that a little bit later, as well as giving you the regular life updates and all that sort of thing. So let's get started. Now first of all to say, this extra stitch video, these are the little bit of knitty chats that I do now and again, just to catch up. What my main episodes are the ones that are all sort of out and about and they've got extra features in them and I take you places and all that sort of thing. But every now and again, because I don't always have the time to go out and do all the busy extra out and about bits, we sit down and have a little bit of knitty chat. So this is one of them. I call them the extra stitches because they're a little bit, just in between to fill in the gaps. So I am still working on my simple Guernsey jersey pattern, as you can see. And this is a pattern by Martin Story. Yes, I know, I'm still knitting on it. Well, I haven't had a huge amount of knitty time. The main times I get to do any knitting are when I have the chance, usually on a Wednesday afternoon, to head down to the village of Whiting Bay, which is a couple of villages down from where I live, and go to the knit group there. And that's when I get a chance to get a good couple of hours knitting in. So this has been a slow project. And you know something? For this season in life, that's good because, as I've often said before, knitting's one of those hobbies, those pastimes which really slows me down. It slows the thinking down, it slows me down, and it's an opportunity just to chill and relax. So I've been working on this, and I chose this pattern mainly because I was looking for something simple to knit for myself, something that is simple enough that I will wear, and in a colour that I was really interested in having it in. So it's in a lovely maroon colour. I've showed you this before. I really like the stitch definition that's coming in there. Nice, and it's got some little bits of interest. I've showed you this before. You know what it's like. Anyway, I'm still on the back piece, on the back panel, but I am getting there. The bit where you sort of come to the part where the sleeves join, that was achieved some time ago. And I am knitting from the bottom of where the sleeve joins up into the shoulder. There's something like 24 centimetres, and I'm a good 21, 22 centimetres along. So this back piece is almost done. I think very soon there'll be opportunity for whatever shaping there is up around the neck at the back. I don't know exactly what that looks like yet. I haven't looked. I'm still measuring my 22, 24 centimetres. So I think though, I am going to be able to get this back piece finished this week, because today, Monday the 30th of June, this is the first day of my holiday. I finished up work yesterday, Sunday. It was a lovely busy day. We had church in the morning, and then in the afternoon we had a nice Songs of Praise event with all the local churches and the local brass band, which I also lead. So that was a nice little event yesterday. But that was the last of my working days for a whole 17 days. Isn't that wonderful? So here I am, catching my breath, doing my knitting. But as I say, I think I will be able to get this back done sometime during this week. I'm at home for this first 5-6 days of holiday, and then on Saturday, Mrs. Clark and I are travelling over to Edinburgh because we're off to the sun. We're off to find some sunshine. We're heading to one of the Canary Islands, Tenerife, and we're going to these exotic climes because this year, Mrs. Clark and I, as I've said to you, we celebrate 25 years of marriage. So it's our silver wedding anniversary this year. So we decided that we'd leave the girls behind, leave the dog behind, and and head for a wee week just to catch our breath, enjoy, celebrate, and just get a well-deserved rest. Mrs. Clark is still at work today. She has half a day left at school, and then she's finished for her 7-week summer break, and she's looking forward to that as well. So it's holiday time, and oh, what bliss that is. So it's good to still have the two girls at home. Katie was down south visiting her nearest and dearest. She's now come back because she's going to be babysitting her youngest sister while we're away sunning ourselves in Tenerife. So well done, Katie. Now I'm going to count some stitches. You going to count with me? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, so 4 to do. Excuse me, I had to do that. This little panel here is in stockinette, but when you're knitting back on the purl side, there is a little bit where you do this little rib section, which I've showed you before, a little feature that runs along the length of the arm just here. And I have to make sure I get my purl stitches in. I'm going to count it again. You ready? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That's great. So there's 5 knit stitches, which gives the little purl bump type effect. And then it goes back to purl before you turn and do the knitting row. So that was a little bit of an inopportune moment that you came in there. I have to concentrate on my knitting. You know, it's like when you've done a whole section of stuff, you don't want to get it wrong and have to knit it, frog it, tink it, that's the word. So there we are, that's it done. So as you can see, we're getting good guns with this. There's a little bottom bit there, and it's a bit wrinkled because it's been in a bag, and it's coming up. It's coming up to kind of the right place, you know. It must be nearly there. It's not quite all the way down yet. And of course, this is the back, so it's going to be a little bit higher, isn't it? So that's where it's got to. I'm quite pleased with it, and I'm sure because it's been in the bag, it's a little bit wrinkly and all that sort of thing. But I'm very pleased with that. Now, as I suspect, I think it's on the large side. But that's how things go. And to be honest with you, I quite like a sweater to be quite baggy. So it's not the end of the world. If it's too baggy, I probably won't wear it that much. Or I might even gift it to someone who requires more baggage than I do these days. I think, yeah. So anyway, I am enjoying that. It's a very simple knit process. You just sit down and it's knit one row, purl the other row, apart from that little interesting bit there. Anyway, you've been very engaged in sending me through a whole bunch of questions. So this is the bit in the programme where you can just sit there and knit away, and I'll trawl through some of the questions you've posted on YouTube and on Instagram. Some of the questions are knitting related, some of them are just bizarre. But I'll answer them anyway because I did ask, and when you ask those kind of questions, you should expect any eventuality. Okay, so I'm going to begin, and the thing is that on YouTube and even on Instagram, some of you have some very weird handles, very weird names, so I'll try and represent them as very best as I can, and hopefully you'll know who you are, but hopefully the question answers will be interesting to you. Now, T. Chafee sent a question, and she said, what is your proudest knitting achievement? What's your proudest knitting achievement? There's two particular projects that come to mind. And when I say proudest, I think proudest in the sense that they are the knits that I have been really the happiest with. And there's two in particular that I can think of. The first one was the very first fisherman's cap, K-A-P, fisherman's cap that I knitted, and I'll insert a picture here. This was my first attempt at a fisherman's cap, and I really liked it. I liked the colours that I picked, and although it doesn't have the traditional sort of blending of colours that you might expect to see in a Fair Isle fisherman's cap, I did really like the colour combination that I picked. I did originally knit this hat for myself, and I could wear it, but it was a little bit tight on my big noggin. So eventually Mrs. Clark has become the recipient of this, and she now proudly wears it in the winter, of course. She wears it to school and when she's doing playground duty and all that sort of thing. So she happily wears it, and it's nice to see someone wearing your knits. And the other project that I'm most pleased with was the Fair Isle sweater, the knitwork sweater the colourwork sweater that I recently completed for Mrs. C. It was the Red Cedar sweater by Jessica McDonald, and you've probably had it up to here with that because it featured for quite a number of episodes recently. But again, really pleased with that, and even more pleased because all the way through the winter and into the spring, Mrs. Clark would often wear that, and it's nice to see your knits being worn, and it's almost always especially nice if you feel you've done a good job, and you get all nice comments from other people on it. So those are the two. Those are my proudest knitting achievements, and I think it'll take me a long time to top those in terms of knitting achievements. So those are the ones that I'm most pleased with. Next question. This one is from Ryan PN, and she says, when did you learn to knit, and who taught you, and how was winter on the island? Well, as I've said before on the podcast here, you may not have been watching for the whole two and a bit years that I've been doing this, but I was originally taught by my granny Helen, and when I was a little boy, I must have been about 7 or 8, and I remember it must have been the summer because we're in the back garden. Must have been a Tuesday that year. It was short summers here, and she taught me with 2 sticks from the garden and a ball of garden twine. So she wasn't going to trust me with knitting needles or any sort of wool of any value. So it was sticks and garden twine. And I got the basics there. But it was some years later when my daughter Katie went to Brownies, and some of the ladies from church had come along and they were teaching the girls how to knit. And Katie came home with her knitting that she had started and said to Mum, because she got stuck, Mum, can you help me with this? But of course, Mrs. Clark had no idea how to knit. And she said, ask your dad, because at some point I'd obviously said to her that my granny taught me to knit when I was little. So so that really was the beginning of getting back into knitting again. And it was a very slow start because I hadn't really improved very much as a child. I mean, we're talking about 10, 12... No, it must be, 2013 or something I've been knitting. So 12 years or so. So that I've sort of gone on from that. So my granny is the one, and it's one of the things that I love when I'm knitting is that I often think of my granny, and that's nice. I like to think of my granny. So thank you for that question. Next one. River Knitter. Hello, River Knitter. Do you have a favourite 100% wool yarn that is DK and non-superwash? The wool that I'm knitting with just now, as I mentioned in the last episode, is superwash. I wouldn't say I had a favourite yarn of any sort of kind, but when I was doing the Monday sweater for my daughter Katie, I used Woolly Knits Blue-Faced Leicester, and that was a double knit. And I have to say, I really enjoyed that wool. It holds its stitch definition really well. It's lovely and soft, so it's not too itchy or scratchy, although it's 100% wool Blue-Faced Leicester. It had a lovely tone, a lovely colour, and I say it was lovely to work with. So if I had a favourite at all, I would probably use that again. And they do quite a few colourways, not particularly wide-ranging colourways. Those sort of natural sort of fawn type colour, and I think they do a red, quite like the red that I'm doing for my simple jersey Guernsey there by Martin Story, and they may do maybe one or two other colours, but that's I would, if I had a favourite, that would be good. But I've also used, I think I think there's a yarn called Donegal, or made by a yarn company called Donegal, which is it's a bit of a rougher yarn, but I've used that and enjoyed that. And the other one, which I haven't yet used, but I do have some. The folks who run the Scottish yarn shows here in Scotland, they have their own yarn, and it's 100% DK natural wool unsuperwashed, and that feels lovely. I've only got one skein of that, so it might end up being a nice deep green hat at some point, and I'll use that. But they have a lovely set of colours, and there's all the lovely starting to come out already. How many times have I said lovely in this podcast so far? You can count them and tell me below. Anyway, that's a nice yarn, and I'm sure that when the Scottish Yarn show comes up, or the Scottish Wool, or whatever it's called, when it comes up at the end of August, I'm hoping to go over to Perth on the mainland, and I hope that I can pick up some of that lovely yarn and maybe do a project with it. So yeah, so that's answers that question on my favourite 100% wool non-superwash. So there we go. Okay, here's Jen from the States, and Jen's one of you lovely viewers who came over to Sanic Stitches a little while ago, and we had a great time. And she's got a few different questions here. Nosy. Joking. She says, in what ways have you noticed your knitting change, remain constant, or help you during the move and all other significant life events over the last few years? My knitting is changing. I mean, naturally your knitting changes. I say, I've only been knitting for around 12 years, so I'm still very much in that stage where my knitting is improving. I think my knitting is improving with each garment. It just seems that I pick up and remember more skills, and yeah, I'm getting now in some of the garments I knit a better finish that I'm really happy with, and I can even manage garments now that don't have a special design feature, as in too many mistakes. Still there if you look for them, but not as many. So that's changed. I think the quality has improved, but I think it's also changing in the kind of projects that I knit. And in spite of the fact that I often say that I need to have some small knitting projects on the go to get the sort of dopamine or serotonin boost or whatever it is you get when you've completed something, I found myself going back to a big project, with this jersey for me. And I think I started that, Jen, because I think I needed to have something that was simple enough that I could still knit away and have that sense of producing something, making something, but which wasn't too taxing for the brain. And that's probably one of the key features for knitting for me. And I've mentioned this in previous podcasts. So when I started that current sweater, it was during the winter, and my mental health it goes haywire in the winter. I suffer from seasonal affective disorder, and it gets dark around here. So, so I don't always have clarity of thought when I sit down to relax and do something like knitting. And so I don't always want to have something that's overcomplicated. So knitting is something that I use to relax and to chill out after your work, which is often taxing and uses lots of brain power. So yeah, so my knitting is still helping with all that, as well as all the other things one has to do to keep afloat when you live in the Northern Hemisphere and it's dark for a good number of months, or at least very cloudy and misty and, dank and grey and all that sort of thing. Anyway, yeah, so my knitting still is a help to health and well-being, but I love the creativity process. That's the thing I love most about knitting. And I love knitting, not so much for myself, but knitting to give gifts to other people. That's what I really love. Okay, and she says, Jen also says, musically, what are you up to these days? Well, musically, quite a lot actually. Music has grown significantly in the last year and a bit, especially. I now am the music director of our little, it is a very little brass band here on the island. We rehearse every week, and we have various mini concerts and gigs that we play around the island. Usually just sort of, social things and markets and, at Christmas time, Christmas carols and all that sort of thing. But the little band work very hard, and they're really coming on musically. And that's a real delight to hear. There's nothing quite beats sitting at front of the band, conducting the band, and have them play a piece that we've been working on, and for them to play it really, really well with really good attention to musical details. So that is really satisfying, really enjoying that. The choir that I sing in here on the island is having its long summer break. We'll probably be back in September again, all being well. And the other thing I've been getting on with is, as you saw in the last video I did, is Sacred Heart singing. It's an unaccompanied 4-part a cappella American primitive gospel hymn singing thing, and it's just nice and raw and loud and passionate, and I like singing that sort of stuff. So that's what I'm doing musically. Those are the main things, and of course not of course, you don't necessarily know this, I lead worship at our church every Sunday, pretty much. I lead the service from the piano, not because we don't have other folks who can do that, but some of the other folks who can do that are also involved, for example, in working with our children. So they're out part of the service, so they're not always available to do bits and bobs. So it's okay. I don't mind leading the service from the piano, and that's just what I often do. So thanks for the question, Jen. I hope you're doing okay. Here comes a next question, and I think it's Donna 11me, I don't know what it is. She says, this is an interesting question. What do you bring of your Celtic mysticism into your pastoral life? That's an interesting question, Donna. I have mentioned before that my master's degree was in Celtic monasticism, not necessarily mysticism. It could be that you've picked me up wrong. I'm not particularly into Celtic mysticism. I am interested, however, in Celtic monasticism, which is what I did my master's dissertation in. What attracts me to the Celtic saints of the 6th to 9th centuries was just their enthusiasm, their passion, and their creativity, and so that's what attracts me personally to them. I wouldn't say that that features very heavily in my pastoral ministry. It's a personal interest. It probably has a little bit more play in terms of the work I do at St. Alex Christian Centre, because it's based on the Celtic idea of faith and spirituality. So I probably use that a little bit more in teaching and things up there, but not so much in my regular pastoral ministry. So thank you for that question. Moving on, Super Tama 6710. She says, what do you love about living where you are? And well, the island is beautiful. The bits of the island that I've been able to show you, I'm sure you will agree. Those of you who come to visit, I'm sure you will agree. It is a beautiful place to live. It's a lovely community. great people, spirited people, which I like. And one of the things I like the most is I've got lots of family here. Not necessarily very close family in terms of relationally close, but still family. And it's lovely to see lots of relations around. And having been away from home for a number of years in serving in different places, it's lovely to be able to go out to the supermarket and see a cousin or something like that. So that's really nice. And I still have a wee great auntie who lives here on the island, and I love to see her. She reminds me so much of my granny, because it's her sister, and so I love to see her as well. She's a lovely wee lady. So yeah, and the same person, Super Tema 6710, also asks, in the past, I've shown you different places around the island. Any chance of more out and about episodes? Well, absolutely yes. That's always my goal with the main episodes, is to at least have some out and about somewhere. Last episode we went to Durham because I was down on retreat, but I think you might be talking island. And yes, I still plan to do more out and about on the island. But you may or may not know that in these last 6 to 9 months especially, although this is a longer problem, I have been having some mobility challenges because of some problems with my feet. That has been quite pronounced in the last 6 months especially. I'm okay when I'm walking from the house to the car, from the car to the hall to the whatever, short distances. But if I have to walk any distance at all, I very quickly find myself unable to go any further because of the way my feet are responding. But I've had some good medical intervention into that situation and some good treatment, and my feet are well on the way to having some rehabilitation. So I'm hoping that I can build up my walking again to get you out and about. And I say hopefully at some point during the summer here, I'm hoping to take you up to Brodick Castle. It's just over the bay from where I live here. And it's got a lovely history and quite a prominent place here in Brodick, which is the village I live. So you can look forward to a visit up to Brodick Castle, the lovely gardens and the lovely grounds up there. So I promise you that. Final question from that same person. What future knits are you thinking about? I'm not thinking about any future knits at the moment. I'm concentrating on my current sweater, and we'll just see how it goes from there. So thank you for that question. Joyce Young asks a non-knitting question. Joyce Young 3136, just in case you needed the number, Joyce. It says, do you like to read? And if so, what kind of genre of book do you like? I do like to read. I've been an avid reader since I was, especially from the age of about 15. I've consumed books like they're going out of fashion. I have to say, I read mainly non-fiction, and usually books that are built around my faith, theology, church leadership, as I mentioned, Celtic monasticism, Christian history, and all that sort of thing. So I like to read that, and of course that's got a double whammy of being interesting to me, but also useful in my work. And it's what stimulates my thinking and hopefully keeps me fresh in the work that I do. In terms of other reading, I don't do a lot of fiction reading, although I do enjoy fiction. I do enjoy getting into a good story, but it's usually when it comes into the summertime that I'll find a fiction book that I will dig into. And one of the ones that I've got for this coming holiday is a book I picked up when I was on, I think I was in Lindisfarne, or was I in Durham? It was one of those places anyway. I picked up a novel written by somebody. I'll try and put in a picture here because I forget what it's called and who wrote it. But it's a fictitious representation of something about the life of St. Cuthbert, who was one of the Northumbrian saints. So I'll look forward to that. I think it's quite a colourful piece of writing, quite creative, quite imaginative. That it's infused with poetry and all sorts of things. So I'll enjoy that. And of course, I should say that I do like poetry. And in particular, I love the poetry of Mary Oliver, who passed away recently. She's an American poet. I just love her poetry. It's very much nature-based, and she's very observant and very clear of expression. And she often is able to articulate some of the things that that often pop up in my heart and mind. So I love reading the poetry of Mary Oliver and poets like her. Reading, I read a lot. One of my challenges, as I going back to the sort of mental health thing, is that I often suffer from a terrible brain fog. And there can be months and months where I can't concentrate on reading, and so the reading really goes out the window. All my reading energies have to be saved for producing the teaching and the stuff that I have to do for work. I don't often have the extra brain space or capacity for other reading, but at the moment, in the middle of the summer and feeling very well, I've managed to get into some more reading, so that is a real joy. So thank you for that question. Now, Holly Jane 4835 asked a really strange question. Well, not a strange question, but really not a reading related question, a knitting related question at all. She says, if you could be an animal, which animal would you choose and why? I have no idea. I have absolutely no idea. Maybe sheep would be okay. Maybe I sometimes look at the sheep round here and think, you've got it good, boy. You have got it good. All they do is wander around the lovely hillside, eating grass all day, sitting down when you're tired, wandering about when you fancy it, or when your friend next to you goes over there. Oh, I'll go over there as well. Sheep, maybe not a very fulfilling lifestyle, but sometimes I fancy being a sheep. And of course, you have the added benefit of having your own wool base on your back. You know, so if you're a sheep and you could knit, that might be quite a storm. I have no idea. I have never given any thought to that kind of question before, but sheep is what it is. Shall we say sheep? That was more difficult to say than I realised. Anyway, thank you, Holly Jane, for that very interesting question. Now, moving on to Deb Signa 6732. She has a few questions. First of all, how is your new neighbourhood? Well, my new neighbourhood is delightful. Where we lived before, we were surrounded by, on one side, cemetery, and on the other side, a field and a golf course, and on the other side, trees and a road, and on the other side, trees and a road. We had no real neighbours to speak of apart from the cemetery, and they were very quiet. It was a dead centre of the village. So moving here, we're in a street which has about 26 houses. And this house here is in the middle of a block of 4. You can't be in the middle of a block of 4. We're in the middle of 2 houses of a block of 4. And we have some lovely neighbours, different generations of neighbours. We have different generations of folks who are living on the street, a few kids rocking about as well. Over the back, we have some lovely neighbours, very chatty and very caring. It's just a lovely neighbourhood. It's a busier part of the island. In the main village of Brodick. We're up just behind the main thoroughfare, so we're in the heart of things, which I love. But it doesn't take very long in Arran before you can go somewhere quiet, which I often do. So just perfect. It's a beautiful neighbourhood, and we're happy to be getting there with the house. We're not quite everything in its place yet, but now we're in the holidays, we should be able to get more of that done, thankfully. Second part of Deb Signa's question is, any closer to the yarn store? No, I'm further away from our little yarn store here on the island, although there is a shop down in Brodick on the front which sells knitwear, but they also have a few yarns of wool produced by the Arran company. Not Arran as in Arran where I live, but Arran as in ARAN, which is where you get Arran knit from. There's an Irish company called Arran Yarns or something, and they sell some of their yarn in there. It's nice. It's a bit expensive, but I can get it. But no, I don't buy a huge amount of yarn because at the moment I have yarn beyond life expectancy. So unless I'm coming up to a project where I have to get some yarn in, I don't tend to buy a lot. I can get some of that yarn locally, and I try and buy locally where I can. But like many people, I often have to resort to online, Wool Warehouse and Woolly Knit and places like that. So yeah, not near the yarn store. Will I sing on the podcast again? Yes, I might do. The thing about singing on podcasts and on YouTube is that you have to watch about copyright and copyright strikes. So if I do sing, it's usually stuff that's out of copyright, that's in public domain. So you never know. It might take my fancy to sing you a wee song for some strange reason at some point. We'll see. Okay, Melanie Murphy, 7045, asks, what type of needle do you prefer, wood, metal or bamboo? I think more often or not, I use my wooden Chaigu needles, which were very kindly gifted to me by one of you lovely viewers a year or so back. Thank you very much still for that. I use those pretty much constantly for my knitting. Although I do have a set of Knit Pro, now is it Knit Pro Zing, which are metal ones, and I do use those when I'm using, particularly when I'm using the wool that I use for knitting beanies. So I often have a beanie on some of those. I do like those. Those were my first set of interchangeable cable connected, you know what I mean, needles, and I do still like those. But I mainly use my wooden Chaigu, mainly because I don't like the slippiness of the metal needles so much. I can cope with it, it's not a problem, but I prefer the wood, especially because sometimes when I knit, I don't always have long concentrated times where I can sit and knit. So it's nice to know that when you're working with wood, there's a little bit more resistance to the stitches falling off the needles, and you can sort of put your knitting down for 5 minutes, you know, to go and see the dog or answer the door or pick up the phone or whatever it is, and then come back to your knitting with a relative chance that it's still going to be on the needle. So that's what I choose. And then another question from Melanie, am I part of the DPN or the Magic Loop team? Magic Loop all the way. I cannot stand double pointed needles. I can use them, but why would you? I mean, I just cannot stand them. What I cannot stand is, I haven't got the skill together yet where I can reduce the ladder thing when you change needles. And there's so many times I'm doing it and I lose a needle because it's too loose, or I don't know, I'm jagging myself and puncturing a lung with these DPNs. I just don't like it. I call them the devil's pointy needles, the devil's pointy sticks. I do love Magic Loop, and again, it's that security of things staying on your needles, and I just like the process. And I've got to the stage now where I can do it without having to have all those ladders and things. So I've got my tension right with that. So that's my thing there. At BLI59, I don't know how you pronounce that, says, is there a beanie along this year? You know, folks, I think we're going to have a pause with the beanie along next year. You've done so well in recent years with the beanie along. We're going to have a pause, and I'm sure that by the time next year comes along, there will be another knit along. I'm hoping that we can do that. I still have talked about in the past doing a Sanker knit along, and I haven't got around to that, but hopefully one of these times, maybe that will be the next thing. I don't know. It all depends on what time I have to start organising this sort of thing. But we're going to have a break from the beanie along this year. Thanking so much of you who have been involved in the past. And if you have started knitting beanies already, thank you. But you can either hold fire with them, keep them until next year, or you can find a project local to you that you can send those off to. And we'll get back to that maybe next year. So thanks for that question. Becky 9700, Becky P 9700, she says, when knitting, do you always use wool or have you used acrylic or cotton? I think I might have said this before, but when I was growing up, it was very rare to see my grandmother or my mum or any of the folks locally using sort of 100% wool, mainly because they were usually knitting for maybe babies or children. It's still quite a tradition here for little babies to wear knitted garments, cardigans, all that sort of thing, hats, booties, mittens and that sort of thing. And I think acrylic yarn was always softer for that. Also, there's a practicality of acrylic yarn for babies. This area, maybe not so much the island here, but on the mainland of Scotland, the price point is also quite a factor. It's not a very rich or affluent community that I was brought up in, and so acrylic wool was soft enough, it was practical enough, it was washable enough, and it was a decent price point. And for all those reasons, people use it. So I have used acrylic. I don't use it a lot now. I still sometimes do some beanies with an acrylic wool blend, maybe sort of 80-20 or 60-40, whatever the blend is. Or sometimes for knitted toys or whatever, I might use acrylic, or it just depends. It depends what I've got, depends what I'm knitting, but I do use acrylic from time to time. I know all the opinions out there about it, but sometimes, depending on what you're doing, it's just a thing you need. I have used cotton. I can't necessarily say I'm a huge fan of cotton. Maybe it was just the cotton I was using. But I don't necessarily knit the kind of projects and the kind of patterns, I suppose, where cotton is necessarily very useful. I wouldn't wear cotton myself. So I haven't used cotton very much, but I have used it. What I would like to try is using a little bit more of things like alpaca and that sort of something different from sheep wool, different kind of wool. So that I can see that in my future. So thank you for that question. We have a question from Laura Missy 7494. Are you doing all right there, by the way? The questions are coming in thick and fast. Question from Laura Missy 7494. How do you choose your next project? Is it random or is it a process? Yes, it's a bit of both. It's a bit of everything. Sometimes if we're starting to move towards Christmas and I've got a particular idea of where I want to knit certain things for certain people at Christmas, well, I'll plan that out and I'll work through that in the months leading up to Christmas. Sometimes, for example, there was a particular period when we lived down south in England where there were a number of small children in the church. And I decided that what I wanted to do was try and knit a wee hat or something for each of the children, so that they could have something from Pastor Andrew. And so that was quite a methodical thing. And one of the lovely things was that my daughter Katie recently went down to the place where we used to live and visited the church there because our boyfriend and his parents go there. And she saw one of the young children that I had knit a few things with, and the main way that she remembered who I was that, oh, your dad knitted me my cardigan and knitted me my bear and knitted me my, so that was really nice. So even when I'm away from those lovely kids who you get to love and appreciate, they can remember you because you're the strange guy that used to knit things for them. So I enjoy that, but otherwise it's just whatever I fancy. Sometimes I can see things far in advance and put it on the want to do list. Sometimes I do it and it's great, and then sometimes I start it and think, why did I even start this? I know it looks good, but I cannot be bothered. For example, the Midwinter Blanket by Martin Storey, I can't see myself progressing with that. It's very impressive, fun, kinda, but just laborious, and I just cannot see myself persevering with that. I was really looking forward to it, but I just did not enjoy the process, and who's got time for that? So process, planned, little bit of a mixture of both. And here is the last question from Deborah Bedard 116, and Deborah asks, do you have a preferred cuff bind off? Well, I wouldn't have said before that I did. However, when I was knitting the Monday sweater for my daughter Katie, I learned to do the Italian bind off, the Italian cuff bind off, and I was really impressed by that. I really loved the finish that left on the garment. Sometimes when you're doing just a regular cast off for cuffs, that's where you can see that your garment is homemade, not in the best way. It sometimes just looks a little bit untidy. So just doing a simple cuff cast off. So I really enjoyed learning the Italian bind off, and I think it's almost like a sort of Kitchener stitch for cuffs. That's what it reminded me of with some of the movements that you were doing in the Italian bind off. So I really, really enjoyed that. The other thing that I enjoyed, which wasn't a cuff bind off, but it was a, what do you call this thing? Collar. Because you knitted a longer collar and then sort of turned it over and I can't remember the name of that, but that was a really nice, a double thickness bent over and sewn in, knitted in type collar thing. That was part of the same garment. So those were two skills that I learned in that garment that I really enjoyed. I really felt it made it look really professionally finished. I was really, really pleased with that. So, well, that's taken an age, 45 minutes already, and this is supposed to be a short, chatty catch-up. But thank you so much for all those questions. I really enjoy interacting with you, and I try, when folks leave a comment down in the comments section, to at least give you a like and give you the sense that I've read it and interacted with it. And where I have time and where there's something I can contribute, I like to respond and say hello or whatever it is down there. So please do leave a comment down in the comments section. If you've got anything else you want to ask, pop it down there and I will answer. Or perhaps you've got somewhere interesting that you're going on your holidays that you might want to tell us about. I don't know. But we'll have a chat down in the comments section, will we? Now, finally, and I've just closed my notebook, so you'll have to let me finish it. You may remember that last time, on the last episode, I said that those that were writing comments in the comment section of the last video had the opportunity, if they wrote a comment down there, to win a copy of a new book that I bought, which was 52 Weeks of Accessories, published by Lane. It's a lovely book. I showed you some of the pictures of the patterns in there, spoke a little bit about it, and there might be some of my future projects which will come from that book. So all you had to do to win a copy of 52 Weeks of Accessories by Lane was to write a comment. And so what I've done is I put the link from the video, that video, into one of those random comment pickers. And so let's have a drum roll. The winner of the 52 Weeks of Accessories was Leslie Wright 9210. Leslie Wright 9210. So Leslie, if you're watching, congratulations, much congratulations. And all you have to do is get in touch with me through one of the ways down below in the video description, and let me know who you are and where you are, and I will try and get a copy of 52 Weeks of Accessories to you. And Leslie's comment that she wrote read this: lovely to see your Northumberland travels. Durham and its cathedral was often a Sunday school trip for me. I've just finished the Bluebell top, knitted in drops alpaca and silk, and now knitting a tea cozy. Well done, Leslie, and congratulations once again. As I say, send me your details and I'll be sure to get that book off to you, and I'm sure everyone else wants to add their congratulations as well. Thank you so much, everyone, for all your comments. Well, that is just about it for now, folks. Very shortly, I'm going to just go over there to the couch and have a relax because I've got nothing else to do today other than edit this video in a few moments. So all the girls that are still at school, they are finishing at 1 o'clock today, so they'll be home before I know it. It seems like they've hardly just gone, but they'll be back very soon. And this week I'll just be getting ready for my holiday. We fly off on Saturday to the lovely Tenerife for 7 days of sunshine and relaxation, and then I'll be back home to get on with the rest of the summer here on the Isle of Arran. So thank you very much for joining with me today. I hope you enjoy your knitting, whatever it is you're doing, and whether it's summer or winter, I hope you're enjoying all the seasonally appropriate benefits of that season. And all I have to say now is Bianach Jegut and Martian Lave and Rasta. Take care, God bless, and see you again soon. Bye.